The persistent fantasy that someone or something is coming to rescue you. And that exact fantasy is the very mechanism keeping you stuck. Often, this doesn't look like a desperate cry for help. It disguises itself as a perfectly rational life plan. We tell ourselves we will finally be happy once we secure that next promotion, once we find the right relationship, or once we move cities. But waiting for this future salvation is actually a highly effective defense mechanism. Every year you spend waiting for the perfect opportunity is a year you voluntarily outsource the responsibility for your current suffering. The self-help industry ironically makes this worse. As soon as people learn to solve a few emotional problems, they become almost addicted to the process. They actively hunt for new crises they can bring to a coach or a therapist. We have bought into the idea that healing means reaching a pristine emotional state where absolutely nothing hurts. The reality is that true growth is just trading your current problems for slightly less terrible ones. Demanding that every single problem be permanently solvable guarantees you will remain miserable. We see a similar trap in our social lives. When we look closely at our greatest social paralysis, we find that human beings are almost never afraid of the mechanical act of failing. If you could fail in total anonymity with zero consequences, you would try everything endlessly. The true paralysis stems entirely from the fear of being seen failing. We suffer from a biological glitch, the imagined audience. We pre-rehearse our humiliation, playing embarrassments on a loop for decades. But the people you fear are barely paying attention to you. They are entirely consumed by their own terror of being watched. If you curate your entire life to appease an imaginary, self-obsessed crowd, you ensure you will never take the risks necessary to figure out who you actually are. This leads straight into the invisible prison of universal likability. Trying to get everyone to like you forces you to outsource your entire self-worth to the shifting expectations of the outside world. It takes time to realize, but the people who find you abrasive or completely misunderstand you are doing you a profound favor. By actively disliking you, they are self-selecting themselves out of your life. They are saving you from pouring immense energy into relationships that were never going to work. Social friction is the ultimate proof of character. If you never encounter anyone who disagrees with you, it means you don't stand for anything. That friction is the evidence that your identity exists. Yet, our default nature is to treat every passing thought like a breaking news alert, and every emotion as a cosmic directive handed down by the gods. Biologically speaking, your brain has a very specific assignment: to keep you alive. It is absolutely not designed to show you objective reality. Because of this, anxiety, depression, and insecurity act as biological lies. They are outdated survival mechanisms screaming false alarms, cleverly disguised in your own voice. The scientific literature backs this up. Functional neuroscience confirms that our brainwaves are easily hijacked by these false signals unless we deliberately manage our environments. So, emotional intelligence does not mean forcing yourself to think positive thoughts. It is the mechanical skill of catching your brain mid-lie and treating your feelings as mere data to consider, rather than directives you have to follow. Once you audit these delusions, you face a brutal practical application. Sometimes the absolute best thing you can do is let a dream die. This diagram illustrates the sunk cost fallacy. People remain stuck in dead careers or relationships simply because of the immense time and energy they have already spent, dragging down their future trajectory. The things you hoped for at 20 are often wildly impractical by the time you reach 40, and the mandatory price of letting go of those outdated ideals is profound grief. But suffering that grief right now is a strategic necessity. It's the only way to arriving at middle age utterly paralyzed by regret. We see this same need to accept hard limits with the people who raised us. It is entirely possible that your parents did their absolute best, and their best still failed and traumatized you. Both facts can exist at exactly the same time. Forgiving them isn't a moral pardon for their mistakes. It is a highly selfish, pragmatic act acquired to stop your own emotional bleeding so you can actually move forward. We have to accept limits everywhere. The modern obsession with having infinite options and a life without boundaries doesn't create freedom, it creates absolute paralysis. The person with 10,000 choices and the person with zero end up doing the exact same amount of nothing. Every great artist, entrepreneur, and thinker produces their best work inside of a box. Meaning is governed by strict constraints of our mortality, our low energy, and our lack of talent. A life completely without limits is simply an ocean 1,000 miles wide, but only an inch deep. By forcefully saying no to 95% of life, the fake friends, the networking, the endless options, you give that remaining 5% absolute, undeniable significance.